Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody. With me is Hayden Howerton. We're a little bit more chipper than we were Saturday afternoon, but we are here to hit you with the hard news, which is that SMU Wake Forest breakdown. What went right? What went wrong? We'll do all that and more on this edition of the On the Pony Express podcast presented by our friends at Northwest Insurance Agency, and it all starts right now.
Remember when your biggest worry was finding parking at Dallas Hall? Now it's protecting your home, your car, maybe even that first business. That's where Northwest Insurance Agency comes in. Exclusive coverage designed by Mustangs for Mustangs who've galloped into the real world. Protect what you've built and move forward with confidence, because once a Mustang, always moving forward.
Northwest Insurance.
This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody. 1, 2, 3, let me go.
That is right. Happy Tuesday, late evening if you're listening to us then, or Wednesday morning on your morning commute. I'm Billy Embody. With me, Hayden Howerton. Of course, breaking down SMU's 13-12 loss to Wake Forest. But Hayden, of course, do want to remind people to reach out to Mark Villasana, Northwest Insurance Agency, 214-352-5656. Mark, an SMU alum, really bummed about the Wake Forest game, but obviously also excited about SMU basketball. So we do have that coming just next week. It's right around the corner, but make sure you reach out to him. Make sure you got the right rates, insurance coverage, and more. As you get into the holidays, you don't want to be worrying about that. So, Hayden, we've got enough to worry about, and that's SMU football going on the road and falling in a game that just leaves you questioning a whole bunch of stuff.
Definitely took the wind out of our sails on Saturday afternoon, unfortunately. You had so much momentum coming after that Clemson game, and you turn around and that 12-13 loss with another walk-off field goal. And it's harder to swallow than that 2022 Tulane game where you go out, you get embarrassed on national television. I think this was the most deserving win or loss of the last 4 years. And I was worried, Billy, when we were there. We stepped foot into the stadium, and there was maybe 8,000 people there 10 minutes before kickoff. And again, I've said it all year. You play up and down to the level of your competition, and if you let bad teams hang around, they're going to beat you. And there's no reason that Wake Forest should have beat SMU on paper. But, Billy, that's why you play the game. And so it's an unfortunate loss. It's an absolute heartbreaker. SMU falls out of the driver's seat for the ACC title race. You're going to have to get lucky as neither UVA or Georgia Tech end up playing each other. So you're going to have to hope that they don't both go unbeaten, and then SMU can run the table. So we're going to need some help. We don't control our own destiny anymore, which does suck. Still have a lot to play for with a big week coming up this week. But we have another about hour to sit among our sorrows, and then we'll be on to the next one. But just to kind of wrap up the intro before we get into a new sponsor, Billy, that you bring into the show, it's just tough to get that one behind us.
Yeah, it really kind of ruins your weekend into Monday, and you can't, if you're SMU, let that ruin your Monday in particular. You're on to game prep. That's a different podcast for a different day later this week on the Pony Express Network. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button to our YouTube channel so you catch the Miami game preview. But for SMU fans, I mean, it's a loss that you can only move past with a really good performance on Saturday against Miami, like super competitive, win or lose, but you got to be very much in the mix to win the football game against Miami in Ford Stadium on Saturday. I think that's the only way to kind of settle things down. Otherwise, it's just going to kind of be that continued mindset about the program, just because that's the first time since, like you said, 2022 that they've really lost a game where, you know, it's just, I mean, Wake Forest 5-3 or 5-2, whatever. It's still where SMU is. It's now gotten to the point, which is a good thing, sign of the program. It was embarrassing, offensively to play that way. So, and special teams, and then to just lose. So, a lot of fans looking to get past that. Well, I can tell you, Saturday morning, make sure you guys are off to the right start by visiting our new friends at Los Charros. Los Charros is right on Hillcrest at the Graduate Hotel. Julian Barsotti, which, by the way, if you've ever been to Barsotti's, that's no free ads, but still got to shout them out and what they've built over there for many, many years. That is the owner of Barsotti's, which used to be Carbone's over there, just kind of south of SMU-ish. But Los Charros, Tex-Mex Smokehouse is an outstanding place for you guys to start your game day off at the Graduate Hotel on Hillcrest. They've got breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They're going to be unveiling their new smoker on Saturday. They'll have Bloody Marys, mimosas, screwdrivers going all morning long. And, of course, they'll be there for you guys post-game as well. Great chance for you guys to get many opportunities to see what Los Charros is all about. The great thing about it is you can wheel right into the Graduate, throw your keys to the valet, run in there, have a breakfast before your workday, and then swing back out and be on your merry way. Just an outstanding new partner for us. We're really excited about all the things we can do with them right next to campus. So be on the lookout for that. We appreciate Corby Farrell, and this one actually came about because of the On the Pony Express family. So really excited about them as well. So head in there and tell them that On the Pony Express sent you when you visit Los Charros over there. So Hayden, now that we got some real hungry feelings about us, you know what? I'm hungry for your keys to the game to get back on the right track, maybe this week against Miami.
I'm certainly hoping so, because Billy, unfortunately, I hate being right after a game like this, because when you look at my keys to the game from last week, I talked about shaking off the hangover that, frankly, I anticipated after going on the road and beating Clemson. I talked about how you had to score first, you had to start fast. SMU did neither of those things. You gave Wake Forest a short field after a terrible punt, and they got 3 points out of it. They actually were the ones playing from ahead. SMU's offense struggled, kind of messed around for 3 drives. You end up putting something together, and you do get a field goal out of it. But ultimately, it was not enough in the first half. You didn't score your only touchdown of the ball game until the second half. You had a couple field goals in the first half, but I'll tell you what, 6 points in each half is not going to win you many ball games. Second one, I thought we had to get Kevin and the pass catchers going. And you had such a great week of prep this past week before Wake Forest. There was such a great scheme the week before against Clemson. I said 3 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, and we walk away with no touchdowns, 156 passing yards, and 1 interception really through the first 50 minutes of the game. So the last one was more of a defensive goal. I think defense played lights out. I had 2 sacks, 10-plus pressures as my key. We had 2 sacks and 16 pressures by our defensive line in this game. And defensive line is vastly improved from the first few games of the season. It's been really encouraging watching the development of that group, how Coach Tibbs and that unit has really trusted the process. I mean, they've improved week over week, as I don't think there's been a game that we've seen them take a step back. It's been better and better every week. And not to make this a Miami prep podcast, but they're going to need another great week this coming one on Saturday.
2 things that, as far as your keys to the game, really stand out to me. Obviously, the start fast piece ended up really sinking SMU. You know, not only does Wake get the field goal early because of the short field, and then even the 10-0, or not 10-0, but even the touchdown that was scored, you know, those are all things that were kind of avoidable for SMU, and they allowed Wake Forest to, you know, make the most out of them. So I think for me, you know, watching the start to the game was just, it was diabolical where SMU was at as far as field position and special teams. And obviously that was brutal to watch. They could have recovered. And I think Rhett's point after the game of, you know, it's kind of on me to pull this team out of it, that we were both kind of waiting for that. Oh, okay, all right, they'll go into halftime here, and they'll, okay, all right, they'll get it. Or even, you know, third drive of the game, you know, those type of things that SMU has kind of throughout the season been generally fine with, they could not do. So for that really hurts, but we never saw the rebound even from that, which is the tough part. And, you know, I think when you, again, not to make this Miami prep podcast, SMU has got to install some confidence boosting throws for Kevin Jennings that are not screen passes. Kevin could throw the fastball out there. That's fine. The screen game, actually, when they're not, you know, getting called for face masks, is rather good. So I'm not trying to break down the screen game and stop that from happening. But man, you need, as a quarterback, I you know, back in my day, my coach would always call an arrow route, right, throw it flat, kind of that, and you'd build it in all week. Or, we had kind of a scripted, trio of plays that built off each other, and we tried to take a shot early in the game, which is fine. SMU tries to take shots too. But for Kevin, you want that kind of drag route. You want that kind of, arrow route that is just kind of a high percentage throw that just is a very simple read that can get your confidence going, and even starting with, run play, those things are kind of nice just to get that first play. Hey, I'm going to catch this snap. I'm going to hand it off and everything's going to be fine. We're on the road, no disaster on play one. Those are the things that I think against Miami, they're going to have to do. And it's going to have to be a rest of the season thing, because I think Kevin feeds off of early success, and that kind of helps him. Again, this has not been an offense that has started well this year. They started really well last year. And you saw the Kevin Jennings that so many people were dazzled by. And I know he's been hurt, but you got to find a way to get him going a little bit. Obviously, defense did its thing as far as your keys to the game, but those two keys both kind of tie into fast start, or at least kind of settling things down early. And man, it was tough. It made me just want to get up out of there and fly away. And there's only one company I trust to get me out of Wake Forest. And I heard some travel issues for a lot of people hit late that night as the weather kind of rolled through Dallas and people were trying to get home. And that's why we pub them all the time, but we got to shout out our friends at StatusJet. StatusJet.com. Reach out to David Henry and his team and make sure you get a discount on a round trip flight when you mention code PonyUpACC or on the Pony Express for a discount on a round trip flight. Make sure you let them know that we sent you. They can organize this flight for you, your family, your friends. You can bring some work colleagues or clients. Make sure you leave it to StatusJet to plan the trip of a lifetime, whether you're doing an SMU game day or a family vacation or work trip. StatusJet can take care of all the details for you. And we trust them to get us from point A to point B without any hiccups. So you wish that SMU's offense wouldn't have had hiccups on Saturday, but that's putting it lightly.
And I wish I could trust them to get the ball from point A to point B, because
wait, sorry. Hold on. Almost forgot, and it's literally right in front of me. New addition to the fam. Look at that. That's going to go right up. That's going to go right up on the shelf there. David Henry and his team hooking it up for us for the office. Our friends at StatusJet, and maybe one day Rydell. We'll see.
So Billy now has the latest helmet of our collection. I've got my Patriot Speed Flex, but Billy's got the Axiom going over there. So
I've got my Patriots helmet. I've got my Patriots helmet. Look,
I've got my SMU helmet too.
The closest I ever got to the Patriots helmet was my high school mascot was the Patriots. So,
okay. Did y'all
close,
steal that logo?
Same, right? Yeah.
Did y'all steal the logo?
No. I don't know. I think they're one of those schools that opted to be the Patriots and have an eagle as a mascot. So America, baby. Roll with that.
But to get into my grades as I break down, I'll start with the offense. This is going to be the worst grade I've given out up to this point this season. I'm going to give an F. I mean, just an underperforming, uninspired, undisciplined performance where you couldn't move the ball essentially at all. It took short fields for us to really kind of get anything going. And the one that hurts the worst is especially when it mattered. At the end of the game, you need one first down to go ice this thing, and you can't get it. And look, when we talk about this offense going into this year, there were extremely high expectations. And I've talked about expectations in the past, but you bring Kevin back in his second year as a full-time starter. You've upgraded an offensive line. The wide receiver core is back. The tight end room is expected to be elite. Your only real negative was losing Brashard, and that certainly hurts, but I thought we had a good enough stable of running backs to where we'd be able to fill effectively. But to go on the road and lay an egg with that offense is unexcusable. 12 points, less than 250 yards, 171 passing on 39 attempts. You only had 2 explosive passes on Saturday. You had R.J. Maryland's 49-yard reception down the middle, and then Ymir Knight caught a little deep post for a 21-yard gain. That's it. I mean, you had 75 yards rushing on 28 tries at 2.7 yards per carry. I mean, just embarrassing. Not one of our running backs averaged over 4 yards a carry. You had one explosive run, and it was for 11 yards. You essentially had no effect on the game on the ground. I mean, that's just completely unacceptable. The offense is the one that needs to provide this spark like we've kind of grown accustomed to in the Lashley era. You had 17 drives. You had 17 opportunities to go get points. So you usually get about 12. And so to walk away with one touchdown and 2 field goals is horrendous. And then you lose the time of possession battle for the 6th time this year, 27-33. You turn the ball over 3 times, 2 interceptions and a fumble. And there's a lot of things I could be disappointed about. I'm really disappointed about how flat we were. I mean, you came out last week, you lit up Clemson, who we knew was a good defense. You came out against Wake Forest, and I talked about it last week, 32nd overall defense heading into the game. And you could not execute the simple throws and catches. You get yourself in 3rd and longs. The average 3rd down distance was 7.2 yards per game. And so I take that and I go, okay, what was our efficiency on passing greater than 5 yards? You went 4 for 15 with a 26% completion rate on passes greater than 5 yards. We talked about it on the plane ride back, Billy. I think we need some air raid concepts, because when you look at the schemes that we brought into that game, the passing scheme was essentially deep shot 50-50 balls that it didn't feel like we converted any of. And I know they're 50-50. Maybe we have some games that they all go our way. But in Wake, none of them went our way. And then you get the bubble screens where Kevin throws it 100 miles an hour out there, and that's great. Let's get it on the edge and go win with perimeter blocking. But ultimately, that can't be your whole passing game. Our run game scheme looked like, to me, I'm not in the rooms. It looked like we were going to run outside zone, and once we turn the corner, we're just going to out-athlete Wake Forest. And it was almost like we were surprised when Wake Forest tackled us in space, which, hey, kudos to them. They did a really nice job of it. But I'm overall, Billy, I'm shocked at how poorly this offense played. No juice, no creativity, no execution. Guys didn't make plays. Ultimately, you need guys to just go out and make plays. I mean, I'm happy for Shaddy Clayton Johnson. He gets the lone touchdown on the day. But overall, I mean, a shockingly bad performance from the offense that results in the grade of an F that I'm going to give them.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I feel like we watched Eric McLean and Kelly Graham, like friends of the show, have a very similar podcast after SMU played Clemson. And I mean, there was more success obviously for Clemson than SMU had at Wake, but it is offensively very concerning on so many levels. And look, talked with Rhett Lashley today. It was me and Dean at the press conference, which, Miami's coming to town and there's 2 reporters there now, which that's what you get. Unfortunately, when a game like this happens, somebody would have made time if they probably would have won, but you don't want to throw everything away that SMU has done that is good. SMU is built with this offensive identity that Rhett Lashley has generally created over the last 3 or 4 years. But the inability for this team to be ready to play offensively can't really be just brushed off as a bad game in year 4. You know what I mean? Like it's, and again, we're not trying to kill people and, get our film access taken away because we're crushing them and things like that. But that's how bad the game was, from a player perspective and from a coaching perspective. And Rhett's right. Like, it's on them to pull them out of it. And it falls with him because he calls the plays too. There seemed like there was no easy fix to it. And I feel like as a coach, and maybe we're wrong. Maybe they called, hey, reached into our bag of 5 easy plays that these are our best plays, the easiest and kind of most straightforward. What did I ask you in the press box? I said, where's Wham? It seemed like whenever they ran Wham or got Stone Eby in there, they'd at least kind of move the pile a little bit.
That was our one touchdown. I just want to say it's on the film room.
Yeah, and Shoddy had a burst to him. And look, let's not gloss over that they lost Savion Byrd, PJ Williams at times, Logan Parr, Matthew Hibner, Chris Johnson Jr., TJ Harden's clearly hurt. Obviously, everybody knows about KJ. Romello Brinson's dealing with something. RJ Maryland doesn't look like the same player. There's a bunch of different things going on here. But, man, you're telling me that SMU couldn't get Ymir Knight the ball kind of in space and just kind of get something going, like a little, maybe even if you're going to throw it on first down, let's drop back. Let's get it to Ymir and let's kind of get going a little bit here. Maybe pick up 7. Then it's 2nd and 3. Run the ball, maybe run a little wham. I don't know this. I said it last year when they were so good, and I feel like it still has held generally true, even though the offense is underachieved in a weird way this year, that their simple, straightforward approach of sticking with the run, committing to it, it really has paid off when SMU's done it. And I think this running back room has shown it's at least deep enough and talented enough to go get it. Like TJ Harden running the way he was, no offense. I love that they're trying to redshirt D'Amico Green now. And Rhett said he's kind of, it's in a different situation now. The guy has burst. The guy's trying. The guy's going to, throw a spin move. And, you see it a lot, but at least he's trying. You know what I mean? Like there's just this team. This team still has a lot of talent to win out if they kind of press some of the right buttons here. I mean, I'm not trying to sell hope. There's no hope being sold for a lot of people. No one's going to buy it after a game like that. But there is the reality that this team does have the ability to do that if they can play up to the level that they are capable of.
And capable of is the biggest, if there.
Doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at through 8 games this year. So you've got 4 games guaranteed, which I wouldn't call our remaining stretch easy by any means. You're 68th in the country in total offense at 388 yards per game, 29 touchdowns, almost 6 yards per play. I mean, you're literally middle of the road, offensively. And it's so disappointing because last year I would have to go back and pull it, but I think we were a top 15 offense last year, and you can't turn all of that and be like, oh, well, we don't have Burchard anymore. You had a lot of creativity last week. You're running some of this speed option stuff where, all right, we're going to slip the D end. We're going to get up to the linebacker. We're going to make this D end make a play, and he chooses wrong, and we pitch it to the running back for a touchdown. I mean, things like that I just didn't see. I also think they kind of had us schemed up, to be honest with you. There was a ton of movement up front, and we'll see it in the film room. It is really, really difficult to run the ball effectively when you're having the defensive end long stick into the A gap. And the tackle and the center are now having to work passing this off when you just don't work that. But it had to have been on tape, ultimately. This is not the first game that Wake Forest has run this kind of stuff. They had these guys that you knew were jetting up the field, and you just completely whiff on the strip sack where you get the motion coming across. We don't even touch him. He just murders Kevin from behind. And of course, he aggravated his ankle again, where it's just like, man, are we doing the extra things that are needed? Not just from the coaching staff. And I Rhett falling on the sword and saying it's my fault, like that. Every good coach does that, and I greatly appreciate that, because the second you have a head coach that throws players under the bus to the media, you've got the wrong guy in charge. But ultimately, the guys in the building have to sit in there after class, and you practice in the morning, come back in the afternoon, watch more film, study more, be more prepared, and it will slow the game down. My best games were not just because, I got lucky. It was, I knew what they were going to do before they did it. I tell you, Billy, when we played Cincinnati, I had picked up a tendency that I knew the very first third down, he's going to hit me with this move. And it's easy when you do stuff like that. I mean, they're great players, that they're on scholarship, they get paid to, all of the coach speak things that ultimately are excuses when they beat you.
Yep.
But could be eliminated with a little more preparation, effort, and just overall buy-in.
Yeah, I'm don't want to kill them anymore, because they could come back and do some of the things Louisville did to Miami. I mean, they really, there is at least a talent level here that I think SMU could find a way to do something against Miami. So we don't want to obviously just keep throwing darts at them and hammering them or whatever. But this is the type of game from a singular perspective that deserves all the ugliness that you hear out of us. And of course, we'll do the defense, which is going to maybe cheer everybody up a little bit. We really should go offense, special teams, defense for a change. If they're three equal parts, we can move around special teams. But the defense, held up its end of the bargain, and for so many, and this is my last point, for so many years, we've seen SMU, and it's again a sign of where the program is now, too. We've seen SMU kind of hold up its end of the bargain, for one side of the ball, while the other side might not be doing its thing as well as it normally does. And Kevin's over there, encouraging the defense as, I remember it. I think it was the Jordan Hudson fumble, which is that was a killer play. That was just a killer play. The defense is coming on the field and Kevin's out there. Hey, high five, guys. Hey, keep it. Pretty much every single defensive player that came on the field got a low five or whatever from Kevin, like keep it up. So they're supporting each other. They're trying. Even, we talked to people who were down there on the field and we're like, is the sideline flat? You had the binoculars. It looked like the sideline was up, was fine. The energy was good. It just was so bad from an execution perspective, which I don't know if that makes it worse or what, but yeah.
I got to get on to defense before I'm about to turn us off. But look, defensively, I got to give us an A+. I mean, you did everything that you needed them to, with the exception of essentially 2 plays. You held Wake to under their season average in yards and points. You held them to 301 yards versus their 409 average. You held them to 13 versus their 29 point average. Defense was put in horrible spots all day by the other 2 units, and they still got stops. And you had 5 turnovers forced. I know one of them was a muffed punt, so 4 for the defense either way. But big days by the safeties, Ahmad Moses, Isaiah Wacobia. I asked Isaiah post-game if he's kind of changed his preparation. I thought this was his best game of the year. I think he had a really nice one last week as well. But he just talked about trying to be the same person every day. But I do think he's kind of put some of those early season woes behind him. It looks like he's playing with a little more swag. He's running around a little bit better. So that was encouraging for me to see. But the story of the day was, as I talked about in my keys, defensive line. 2 sacks, 16 pressures, and that was the only key to the game that was achieved in this one. And I and a lot of other people had them written off after Baylor. We just can't replace the talent that we lost from last year. But they've balled out over the last couple games, and it's going to be a huge test from a really good offensive line next week. But I'm not convinced that we aren't going to go get smoked by Miami based on this past performance. But if this D-line can wreck shop, you can get Carson Beck on the ground, then who knows? Maybe we can make something happen. And Cameron Robertson missed this game. That was a huge loss. Someone pregame described this unit as about as deep as a puddle, as you were playing with some guys that otherwise probably wouldn't have been out there if Cam is. So,
well, it's like the sprint, it's kind of like playing with a thin group of corners. It's those guys are sprinting off the ball. You know what I mean? Like obviously the big uglies up front are just working their tails off, but I feel like the ends, man, like you're sprinting up the field, I don't know.
No, DJ Warner, I mean, he was sprinting. He really impressed me, especially with his level of effort. I mean, he made multiple open field chase down blocks where I think in the booth I was like, I knew he was fast. I didn't know he was that fast.
He's the fastest defensive end. I've said that. I feel like I at least got this right. I mean, he hasn't emerged as this reliable player just yet. He's still super young. This is only his 2nd year of college football. So he actually, he played I'll look that up. He played a bunch as a true freshman he played in 12 games as a freshman in Kansas and then came over here. And so this is only his 2nd year. So he's got a bright future for SMU. Expect the defensive ends next year, again, not to make this a next season preview podcast, but the defensive ends next year, as much as losing Turbo and Cam Robinson is going to suck, they do have some talent brewing back there at the defensive end spot. And DJ Warner's one of them for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I loved the effort from the defense. I kind of ripped them early on in the year about guys jogging around or walking around, but the defensive staff, I can't give enough props of the job that they did getting that fixed, because it is way harder to say go than it is to say whoa. And they have
no, Chad.
they have found a way to somehow get the defense turned around from an effort perspective. So A plus. I mean, I have a couple of plays on the film room. Stay tuned for that, where there was a couple of busted coverages that led to some big chunk plays for Wake Forest. But ultimately, I mean, you couldn't have asked for much more from the defense.
Yeah. The defense is like the Thomas Auto Group. I mean, you just couldn't ask for a better performance from our friends at the Thomas Auto Group. When you go over there for the service department, or whether you go to buy a new vehicle or a pre-owned vehicle, make sure you head up 75 McKinney and do visit them, their Ford, Subaru, Volkswagen, and Mitsubishi dealerships, and learn about the Thomas Promise today, because I promise you it'll be worth it. Like watching the defensive film from this Wake Forest game, a really, really good experience watching that. I think for me, one, the run game or the run defense continues to impress. Obviously, Damon Claiborne got his at times against SMU, which you kind of expect. Finished 23 carries, 73 yards, a long run of 17. Finished 3.2 yards per carry. This is a guy that came into the game as, I think, top 5 in the country in yards per carry. He was averaging something like seven yards a carry. I'm pretty sure I have that right. I know he was right around the 90-ish yard mark. For so long, I had the weekly release from the ACC up, and of course, it's gone from last week, which had it. But he is a really, really talented running back. SMU's defense in the run game continues to impress. If SMU can replicate this type of a performance, they're going to have a chance against Miami. I mean, they are. By the way, again, not trying to make this preview pod on Miami, but I've been consuming all of the Miami podcasts and the press conferences. Oh my goodness. Mark Fletcher rushed for over 100 yards this week. Maybe we should talk about this thing coast to coast. He rushed for over 100 yards, and Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator, spent about 10 minutes explaining to everybody basically their entire run scheme, how they do it, why they do it this way, because fans, and then it comes from the media, fans are mad that Miami doesn't run outside more.
So they don't need the film room to put their scheme out there. They just went ahead and put it out.
Yeah, it's nuts. Like, you would have thought Mark Fletcher was held to like 25 yards rushing on 23 carries or something. Like a full-blown, hey, do you understand what an outside zone? Do you A gap, B gap, all these different ways. So I encourage you guys to find the Shannon Dawson press conference from this week. Again, it's about SMU. It's previewing SMU. So I don't. SMU's a pretty cushy job. We got in on Rhett and asked some tough questions after a game like this, but you would think Miami lost 42-7 by the press conferences this week. So anyway, if
SMU rushing defense, 15th best in the country, 95.5 yards per game,
and that's probably. In conference, I mean, they're probably cooking in conference. Let me see if I can find that real quick.
Miami's number 1.
Okay. Third.
And then
I saw this on Twitter. Yep. So really, really good performance from the run defense by SMU. And then their quarterbacks were exactly what I thought they were. I mean, they were not good. I mean, they're really not. They made a couple of key throws that made the game the way it was. One key throw in particular, but Robbie Ashford, not a passer. Obviously coming off a thumb injury. He did have the touchdown pass on after the strip sack, which again, another piece, 3 turnovers for SMU, not great, but one of them you give up the touchdown, which you get the ball inside the 15 or whatever it was. And then 5 turnovers forced by this SMU defense. 0 points off turnovers for SMU. That is something that at least in the past SMU has been able to do. Like, that has been a kind of a calling card a little bit, is capitalizing on other teams' turnovers and
not playing complimentary football at that.
Yeah, point. And all year it's kind of been that way too. So,
I mean, unfortunately, Billy, offense was bad, but I think special teams was worse.
Yeah,
I mean, I now is the lowest grade I've given on the season, F- for special teams, and Bill told me I should give them a 0. I think 0 would be we missed every extra point and got all of our punts blocked.
Yeah.
But Second game this year, I think we've lost due to special teams, with Baylor being the other one. And I've been very complimentary of some of these guys so far this year. Wade McSparron's one that comes to mind. And
Yep.
he had a great week last week against Clemson, 50 yards per punt on average. And on Saturday, 9 punts, 350 yards, which I think is kind of hard to comprehend. But a pair of shanks early led to scores. You had a 9-yard punt after our third drive started Wake at the +20. I mean, you might as well go for it at that point. But it can't happen, man. After offense is sputtering, and I'm not blaming special teams woes on the offense, but it certainly magnifies the problems, because you're looking at all of this, and the punt return unit needs to help Ymir. I mean, I think he's due for a big return, but he's having to fair catch everything because the punt unit for our opponents gets down there and covers them so quickly, where I don't know how many returns he's had on the year. I mean, you can count them on one hand. I mean, he is – and he does a great job at fielding the punts. I don't want to take away that ability, because some of these plays he's made has really prevented SMU's offense from being in even worse positions. But kickoff return, I don't have much to say. But the field goal unit, I mean, pretty much good night. You get an extra point blocked, which I've got both of these misses on the film room. But it's a combination of Sione getting blown up, he allows the inside rush, and you have a low kick from Sam. And then the missed extra point comes back to bite you 9 out of 10 times, and second week in a row with a missed extra point is just outrageous. I mean, you missed the 43-yarder, and I saw in the film he was given laces, which, again,
Yep.
but that focus thing can't freaking happen.
Yep.
If Billy, and here's what I'll say. If we're going to go out and we're going to give the specialists one of your scholarships in a limited world, it's got to be automatic. That's the expectation. Otherwise, let's get 3 scholarships back and let Stone Eby kick extra points and field goals.
Dude, he was bombing him at Clemson.
That's what I'm saying. And find a snapper. Use one of the backup O linemen. And Trevor Denbo is our punter. One of my years. So find some of these guys that can do both. But a horrendous day for the specialists. And I know it's a tough position. You're always in the spotlight, but I had one of the specialists' dads last year ask me why I don't talk about his son more on the pod. And specialists are supposed to be seen, not heard, unless they do something, miraculous. But performances like this cost teams game F-.
I will say, I think the kicking unit, or the kicker, Sam Keltner, the long term, he's fine.
It was not Sam Keltner's dad for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Sam was redshirting. Everybody knows that. But look, I think the special teams is this is just probably going to come off the way it comes off. Everybody knows, I feel like, the stories of like Urban Meyer, and Urban Meyer is like, we're going to talk about Brian Kelly later. I mean, he's probably on the Mount Rushmore. But dude can coach some football, and Ohio State, one of the better special teams units, when he was there. Florida, same story, all those things. It has to be like just more of an emphasis, I feel like. And it's not that they don't emphasize it. And we've seen SMU go out, and I want to be very careful here, because I do think there's a line to walk on this type of stuff. When SMU has Ymir Knight, we know what he can do. They went out and solved the problem with kickoff return. Brashard Smith comes in. Obviously, like, he didn't get his opportunities, but Roger Daniels was great, punt returning for the most part. They've kind of ticked away at special teams, but SMU has to develop a level of consistency. You need that Clemson game that you can rely on week in, week out. And then you want to have, you don't want to, but you can have the aberration of a bad special teams game, and no one's going to sit there and really be like, well, the whole unit has to be, just canned. But special teams has to find a way to be more consistent. I don't know if there needs to be a bigger amount of time spent on it. I just don't know. We're only in there so often, or for so long in practice and even in fall camp. But something has to change here, where we're not having to explain away what's going wrong on special teams. Like the laces, for example. I don't want to say it's always something, but man, it's kind of like it's always something. You know what I mean? It just
I've never been a holder. Okay, look, But such a easy, small thing, dude. Turn the ball.
Yeah.
It's the little things, and it always is with special teams. But I was with some great special teams coordinators in my time in the league, and that's all they do. And when it comes time for the special teams period, hey, this is Jeff's period. And basically all the other coaches moved aside except for the assistants, and he ran that thing like he was the head coach. So I just don't know if you need a little more ass chewing, during practice on special. I don't know. That is a
I think it just needs and I don't like you. There's all sorts of different ways to do things, but there needs to be more attention to detail. And again, we're probably, it's just going to come off how it comes off, but just it's always something. I mean, it just one area lets another area down and, spoils what would have been a huge day for Sam Keltner, for example. Sam Keltner would have been back-to-back week, arguably MVP, if somebody turns the laces and somebody blocks their assigned guy. You know what I mean? Like but it's a team game. It's a team game. And when things go wrong, the whole unit kind of wears it. I'm sure there's an offensive lineman that graded out well, but the whole unit wears it. So,
yeah, I don't have any more for grades. I can only tear them down so much.
Hey, when you play like that, I mean, we shouldn't be hearing about it afterwards. I can tell you that after this pod drops. So, I can tell you want reliability, Hayden. Our friends at Game Time, they can hook it up for you week in, week out on the college football slate. You want to go see SMU host Miami, sold out Ford Stadium. Well, guess what? You're going to pay a premium, but our friends at Game Time are going to hook it up. $20 off your first purchase when you use code ON3. That's ON, the number 3. And Game Time has the great app that you can fly around. You can check out the different zone deals. You can get a super deal. You can see the view from your seats. That's the cool thing. You can download the app and do all of that. And that fees are also included. So your total up front. There's no surprises at checkouts. And they give you that lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a seat for a lower price elsewhere. So make sure you guys do your research. But look, Game Time is the best spot to find those college football tickets, including SMU Miami, and they are 100% legitimate tickets at the best price. So make sure you check out our friends at Game Time. Download the app today. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets. Create an account and use code ON3, ON, the number 3, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Create an account and redeem code ON3 for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. The only thing it doesn't do is play the film room from Hayden Howerton. And man, if it did, that would really reel in those SMU fans. You could look for your tickets and get the film room. It's the only thing they need to change.
We'll get right on that to see if we can't make that happen. But guys, watching the film took me a couple days on this one. This was one where if I was a player, I've been in meetings like this where you'd rather just walk out the building than go sit in the film room here. So this is not going to be as peppy, as encouraging as some previous weeks have been. There's definitely a lot to learn from, as you never learn as much in a win as you do in a loss. It just hurts more gets corrected, because obviously the scoreboard reflects it a little bit more in a loss than it does in a win. But ultimately, I've got 10 plays for you guys tonight. I've got 5 offense, 3 defense, and 2 special teams. So watch closely. I will be a little more critical of the guys that I have been in the past, but it's all because I love them. It's all because I know how well they can play. They live up to their potential. So without further ado, thank you again to the people who allow us to do this on a weekly basis. And please enjoy the film room. Welcome into the film room, everybody. Welcome back to another edition as we break down the offense to start this game against Wake Forest. So I wanted to break down one of the early runs that we had. I think this was the first run of the second drive there. And I think the most disappointing thing was our lack of physicality up front. I think we did a little more position blocking than we had been accustomed to. As you watch the backside here of this right side run, left tackle, left guard, center are all just kind of getting into some position blocking. Addison Nichols does get a knockdown here. I don't want to take away from this, but it looks like he's not really even on track for the guy. I mean, that's not a great position to be in, as PJ runs out as he hits this long stick here. It looks like they're trying to push last second. I just don't think everybody was on the same page either with this run. Chris Johnson Jr. makes the play happen. I mean, they're in the hole. Makes the guy miss, which Jordan Hudson comes and helps him out as well. We do get a good result with this few-yard gain here, but ultimately just isn't the standard that this offensive line is accustomed to. I know they'll get it right, but it was just hard to see this so early in the game. And this was kind of a theme of the day of it didn't really look like we were blowing people off the ball. It was just kind of a game that Wake Forest was able to do what they had to win. So this run here, they actually got us on scheme. So 45 here, he's the safety. He's lining up pretty close to the line of scrimmage, and then late he rolls down. So ultimately, we're over here running power. And on the snap here, the responsibilities really are Matthew Hipner goes up and takes the end man on paper. Well, he crosses PJ's face, so PJ's going to take him. PJ's usual responsibility is to climb back for 43. Well, he just took the end man. So Matthew Hipner now turns out for the blitzing safety. Logan Parr stays on his track. He picks up the front side blocker. But now we've got nobody for the backside linebacker. We're robbing Peter to pay Paul in this situation as we do turn out on the safety. He was the bigger threat. He was right there at the line of scrimmage. But ultimately we get tackled as we don't get to anybody onto the backside linebacker here. We're tackled for no gain. I think we're doing an okay job. PJ ends up getting a knockdown here. It looks like the offensive line is executing their blocking. I think Matthew Hipner is as well. This is just 100% on scheme, and they got us here. Happens every year in college football as you get deep into your season, and some guys get some battlefield promotions. Hey, it was how I got my first meaningful playing time when the guy in front of me went down, and so Tripper Arden here, the tight end, he gets some meaningful playing time on the road at Wake Forest for him in one of his first meaningful snaps of the year. I do feel bad for him. This is one of our split zone protections here, so he's really going, his responsibility is to kick out 10. I just think his eyes need to get over there quicker. It looks like his eyes are really on PJ here. He's trying to read something off PJ's hip. Well, at the snap, 10's already 2 or 3 yards upfield. He has to adjust late, and when Kevin doesn't hand this ball off, which Kevin's not being told to hand the ball off by any kind of scheme. I mean, look at the linebacker, 45. He's running downhill. We don't have anybody for him. So he's got to pull it here thinking he's going to throw. But ultimately, 10 essentially is unblocked and hits Kevin from his blind side. He strips Kevin, ball's on the ground, a turnover inside the 20 for Wake Forest. They did end up getting points off of this as well. And it's really just unfortunate because I do think Tripp could have a nice career. He's got the body for it, 6'5", 248. I mean, he's a good-looking tight end out there. He just needs to get some more reps, and he needs to be able to make an adjustment off of this because losses like this are where you really are able to grow as a player, as a team. And I'm not trying to make this loss feel any better because we're not about moral victories in this program or on this show for that matter. But ultimately, Tripp will learn from this. He'll get better, and he just has to because you don't get this speed of reps in practice, but he won't make this mistake again. But ultimately, hurt SMU. Ball got on the ground. We turned it over. One of 3 turnovers for this offense today, and it bit us. It was one of the differences of the game. All right, I do want to have some positivity here on this show as Shaddy Clayton Johnson does get his first touchdown as a Mustang on this clip. And football's fun, right? It's not always doom and gloom. I mean, obviously Saturday sucked, but I do want to compliment Shaddy for this, as I really do think he could be a guy that starts to get some carries for us, especially as numbers wear down. But we talked about last week about the wham, and we do run the wham again here. It happens a little differently. We don't have 3-pullers this time, so we made a little wrinkle of an adjustment here. But you see Addison set up the D tackle, and then he kicks out the end. Stone Eby is flowing across, which influences this backside linebacker where PJ is able to get underneath him, and you really split the defense in half. You essentially hit a single on the front side between Bates and Anderson. You wall off the defense on the left. You kick out on the right, and PJ does a good job of getting underneath the linebacker. And Shaddy really just walks in here for the touchdown. So great job on the execution here. It was the only touchdown of the game. I'm really happy that he was able to get into the end zone and find his first score as a Mustang. But ultimately, it just wasn't enough. We had to get more from this offense. This is one of a few bright spots of the game on Saturday. Unfortunately, this play here kind of summed up the whole day for the offense. So this is the one where we didn't get enough for the first down, where we didn't stretch the ball out enough. But it kind of is a top-to-bottom failure from this offense. So on the protection, I don't think we get enough depth at the tackle spot, especially at left tackle. I just don't think his drag follows his initial kick. So he gets a really wide base. He has to open up here. We do get some internal pressure as well. It flushes Kevin out to the left. He's in the end zone. This could have been a safety. That was really scary. I'm glad he got out of the end zone at least. But he's rushing here. He's turning the corner. You can see where the sticks are at. At about the 16 is the yard to gain. And Kevin's at the 14 here. There's 5 yards between him and the Wake Forest defender. And he unfortunately just steps out. So I'm not really sure what happened here. I know Kevin is athletic enough to make this guy miss. I know he's strong enough to put his foot in the ground and go get this yardage. Sucks because ultimately you get a first down here and you don't have to get a first down at the end of the game. Even if this is the only first down SMU gets on this drive. You burn another couple minutes off the clock. Wake Forest turns the ball over inside their red zone, and SMU wins because you don't have to go get another first down. I mean, football comes down to 4 or 5 moments every single week. This certainly was one of them that bites SMU that Kevin, I know, wants back. But ultimately, I'm not questioning his want to win, his leadership, things like that. He just needs to have just a little bit more awareness and just reach out and get this first down. He's good enough too. I know he's nursing his ankle a little bit here, which is fine, but just reach out and just get the first down next time, Kev. So a few plays here for defense. So I thought overall had a really excellent day. I mean, there's a couple negative clips here, but this one here that I want to start with. A little rollout protections, similar thing to what we do. Good job by the pressure on Turbo. He's not biting on this crossing tight end. Alex Kilgore is actually the one in the coverage. Watch this hit here. This is super early. This might be the first or second drive, and just launches him out of bounds. I mean, this was one of those plays that set the tone kind of for the whole day defensively. And great job, Kilgore. I'm glad he's healthy again. I mean, just look at that again. Just launches 84 here out of bounds. Guys on the sideline are a little excited. Kilgore's excited, man, and it's good to have him back as the leader of our defense. All right, so I'm not 100% sure what the coverage is here on this play, but this is a big chunk play for Wake Forest that set them up in a pretty good position. So base defense, what we're lining up with, we really only have one high safety. You've got a corner off the ball here at the top of the screen, and then your other corner really is in the box. I mean, he's inside of the defensive end here. Wake does not have a receiver down here at the bottom of the screen, so he really has the freedom to do this and add on as another defender. There's no tight end. There's no receiver down here. So that's fine. But ultimately what hurts us here is this 3-by-1 set on the other side. As this guy off the ball, he really runs by 2 or 3 guys that could have all covered him. And for whatever reason, nobody does. So I'm not sure whose guy this is supposed to be by scheme. This middle of the field safety, this is Wacobia here. He's right in going over. We talked about knowing where your help is last week on the film room. He's right to go over and help these guys. But one of these 3 guys here standing on the Wake Forest logo has to cover this guy because he's just uncovered. And if this is a better throw, this is 7 points for Wake. So I'm not sure what happened on the coverage here. Just one of those busted coverage deals that SMU just has to eliminate at this point in the season. Defense had played so well on Saturday, and unfortunately this was just one of these plays that you just want back. I mean, they'd come up with so many stops, but ultimately they just needed one more to get it done, and Wake comes up with a big shot play here. So Wake has the ball on their 44-yard line coming out. They need probably a 20-yard shot play in order to really get into field goal range and feel good about it here. So SMU's in not true prevent defense, but every defensive back is at least 10 to 15 yards off the ball right here, which is fine. I'm good with that. I think that's the right call because you don't want to give up something in press. They hit us over the top for a touchdown, or they end up on like the 5-yard line for a chip shot field goal. So ultimately, we're watching this little crossing route here at the bottom where both receivers kind of make this X pattern as one runs up the numbers, he settles down. This ball is really overthrown. I think if we're in a better position, this could have been a play on the ball. Maybe the pass is broken up. Maybe it's even picked here. And I'm not asking defense to come up with 6 turnovers every week, but ultimately, he makes the catch here, and even if we tackle him here at the 37-yard line, he's kicking a 54-yard field goal instead of a 50. We all know how the next play happens as Wake converts a 50-yard field goal by essentially the skin of their teeth. I mean, no more than 6 inches. But ultimately just a failure to get them down in a situation to where you have to have it here. And I'm not blaming the defense for the loss on Saturday. I think they played their tails off. Only giving up 13 points on the road is really good to a top 60 offense. But unfortunately, you just want to have this play back. So I still feel good with my grade for the defense, giving them an A here. Really, the 2 plays that I've shown you guys are the 2 biggest chunk plays they had of the day. But ultimately, you just have to come up with a win here in this situation. So I want to talk a little bit about PAT field goal, as I played essentially every position besides holder and kicker on PAT field goal. I know a little bit about it, but this first rep here, there's not a lot from the blocking perspective other than Sione needs to get his butt down a little bit, as he's standing every bit of 6'8" here. As we'll see on the next clip, it does hurt SMU when guys play as tall as they can on PAT field goal. You know the rush is going to come from the field, so you just got to hang in there. But ultimately, the story of this is not the blocking. It's not the snap. I don't even really know if I would say it's the kick, even though this does come up as a missed field goal. Look at that. We're getting laces here. And I know it wasn't the best day for him punting, but to then give the kicker laces, we end up pulling this field goal to the left. Would have been a 3 points that we would have needed at the end of the game. But again, you just never know those 4 or 5 plays that are going to be the difference in the ball game. And unfortunately, this missed field goal comes up as one of them. So we talked on the last snap about pad level on PAT field goal, and we're going to talk about it again here because it didn't influence the missed field goal, but it certainly influences this missed extra point. So I'll let it run through. Wake Forest comes on the inside. They end up blocking this field goal. Ultimately, this goes on both guards here. So both right guard, Sione, I know he's the biggest guy on our team. Left guard, Abel Hoopy, he's a good-sized kid as well. These have to be the pillars of PAT field goal. You cannot get blown back at guard. And I've played guard on PAT field goal. I know how hard it is. I've played it in the NFL. It is tough. I mean, here, both of these guys are taking on 2 defenders apiece. So you have to drop in there and really hold your ground and be able to win at this spot. But ultimately, both of them move their inside foot. They both open the gate. So Wake Forest is able to essentially rush straight up the gut, and he gets his hand up for a perfect block here. This is 100% just a technique thing that they didn't go out and execute. Makes Keltner look bad. It makes this unit look bad. You left 4 points on the board from this PAT field goal unit, and you get those 4 points, you win by 3 instead of losing by 1. So it's really unfortunate. I think saying that special teams played poorly is an understatement. I think I could use a lot more colorful language to describe the special teams on Saturday. But ultimately, just very disappointing addition of the film room. All right, Billy, that was a struggle to get through, to be honest with you. But at the end of the day, the eye in the sky doesn't lie, and that's what we saw on film on Saturday. So I would love to drink my sorrows away with a bottle of Socorro after that edition of the film room.
Well, of course, drink responsibly, Hayden. Yes, we'll have the bottle of Socorro with us, but not the full bottle, as bad as it was. But look, you want something smooth that tastes great and just has that really clean feeling to it when you're sipping it, whether it be on the rocks or in your mixed drink. I've been telling you guys, of course, about the cocktails we've been making at home or the margaritas we've been making. Socorro is our go-to tequila, and we'll be on the Boulevard as well, a little early, but hey, that's why they have tequila sunrises, and our friends at Socorro hooking it up for us on homecoming this weekend. So make sure, whether you're at Manny's Tex-Mex, whether you're at Los Charros, whether you're at wherever, ask for Socorro or pick it up for your game day and find out why it's an award-winning tequila and one of the official sponsors of SMU Athletics. So appreciate their support of us. And boy, the great thing about YouTube is if we wanted to, we could. But we're going to hold off on this one as look, it's a long season, but we'll cheers at the end with our friends at Socorro.
There's still time. There's still time for SMU as well. I mean,
if SMU beats Miami, we will be drinking Socorro tequila on the podcast next episode.
No doubt. No doubt. I mean, book it. But look, to kind of put a wrap on this past game, SMU did everything in its power to lose that ball game. And you still figured out a way where you were in the driver's seat to win that game with a minute left. But you couldn't get a first down. You lose in regulation. And Billy, when we've had the success we've had the last couple of years, you knew an upset would happen eventually. It was just a matter of time. The streak wasn't going to last forever. I'm shocked at who it came against, but you knew it wasn't going to be a forever thing, and SMU rides into 10 straight national championships. But SMU is going to have to try to rebound next week. It is such a gut punch of a loss that hopefully today's Tuesday that they've already gone out. They've had a great day of practice, and hopefully they put together a couple more as they get ready for essentially a game that means a lot to not just Rhett Lashley, but multiple guys on this team, on this staff as they come in for homecoming. And we'll cover that on another episode. But before we get to coast, Billy, I just want to say I'm disappointed, but the season's not over.
Yeah. And Vegas is good, man. I mean, just Vegas is so good. Like, they had this pegged as the walk-off field goal, basically. They really did. And sure enough, they were basically, missed extra point away from somebody winning it by a touchdown or having to kick a field goal to, kind of hit it. So disappointing on so many levels. But look, it's our time now to kind of flush it and move on. Speaking of flushing, Brian Kelly gets fired at LSU. They're flushing him out of Baton Rouge. But look, with all the money he's making, he should head over and visit our friends at Mignon in Plano. Look, he's familiar with the Dallas area. LSU recruits it. I'm sure he recruited it at Notre Dame. Mignon, fine dining experience with our friend Nick Nator and his family, serving up some great meals over the years that they've been in Plano. They're just south of the HEB on Preston Road. So make sure you head over there. And if SMU beats Miami, we keep telling you guys, make your reservations on Open Table. You can click the link in the podcast description to do that. And you can have dinner there any day of the week. They're open 7 days a week for dinner. Or you can have brunch on Sunday. And if SMU wins, you get free dessert on Sunday. So make sure you tell them On the Pony Express sent you and you want your free dessert. So incredible food from our friends at Mignon. And we really appreciate all they do for us on the Pony Express podcast. Again, maybe we'll be drinking Socorro tequila on the next episode and talking about the meal we went and had at Mignon if the Mustangs can pull it off against Miami.
Man, shall we?
Yeah, coast to coast. It's time.
I can't lie to you guys. I'm still in my feels a little bit. We do have a juicy episode of Coast to Coast, but we'll start with Friday night. Cal at Virginia Tech, and Billy, you posted on Friday night that something about giving up another 9 years of money to play at Virginia Tech earlier, because I don't think we go until 2028. But
correct.
The Hokies showed out. I mean, their fans are some of the best in the land, despite the 2-5 record. They showed up like they were 7-0.
Yep.
Virginia Tech wide receiver Take Heath, he showed up. He had 2 scores, including the go-ahead touchdown, and which was the winner for double overtime. Virginia Tech, I'm very surprised, as a lot of other people are. Phil Montgomery has frankly let that team kind of come back from the dead a little bit early in the season. Hokies end up beating Cal, who had maybe was going to go on a roll. I don't know. It's kind of always hard to tell with the Golden Bears, but either way, I'm happy to see Virginia Tech not just completely go off the deep end for the conference.
Yeah, me too. I thought that was a great win. I can't remember how I picked that game. I'm pretty sure I picked Virginia Tech, or at least said, hey, watch this one. This could, that trip across the country, all those things for Cal. Freshman quarterback going into Lane Stadium. Look, that's a tough place to play, and it was sold out. Kudos to him. And again, I can't wait for whenever we get to Blacksburg. One of the hidden gems of the ACC, no question about it. So a nice win for Philip Montgomery, who's the interim coach there, like you said. And I think, he should be in consideration for the job. And if you aren't listening to our All Access AM, the morning show that we're doing Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Pete Nakos led off this week talking about that Virginia Tech job. So make sure you check out the All Access AM channel. But Saturday was, might as well have been Black Saturday for Brian Kelly. He was locked out of the building Sunday morning.
Yeah. Number 3 A&M, they go to Death Valley in Baton Rouge, not at Clemson, but they drive the final dagger for Brian Kelly. And people, there were rumblings, about what a failure of a kind of tenure it's been, as 19-10 in SEC play ends up being Brian Kelly's record. He does get fired on Sunday, like you said, but that's kind of a result of the expectations that come with taking the job at LSU. That you're expected to be a top 10 program every single year. There's expectation that you're going to go get all these recruits, as really people go to LSU not to play for Brian Kelly, but they want to play in the purple and gold. So, Billy, you covered them for so many years, but talk a little bit about kind of just what we're seeing right now from that program.
Yeah, I think, Pete, and not to pub Pete Nakos, but he does a great job for us at On 3, but I thought something he wrote this week was really important. And the culture and chemistry at LSU for the head coach to have with the state of Louisiana is really important. But you can't go out and just be, and Hayden, this is only going to come off the way it's going to come off. But Chad Morris was brought to SMU, for example, and he wanted to have all Texas guys, and he did that. But he also took some guys that probably should not have been, taken at SMU. Not Hayden Howerton, of course. The offensive line class was solid there for a bit. So there's that. I think Brian Kelly kind of let that take over a little bit. So I think the bottom third of this roster was pretty poor from an SEC level. And so you see the depth that A&M rolled in there with and just whipped their tail. All those recruiting classes under Jimbo Fisher, that, of course, they wasted the talent. But Mike Elko has developed, and then they pressed the right buttons in the transfer portal. That has all been really important to what A&M's been able to do. And Brian Kelly just never really embraced the grind of the SEC at that type of a program. If you win at LSU, you are more powerful than the governor. You are the most powerful person in the state. And you have to want to get to that level. And that's the only way you're going to be successful at that job. You can't be satisfied with anything. And Brian Kelly was just kind of satisfied. I mean, he was, when they overhauled their defensive staff maybe a couple years ago, and they made some great hires, but Brian Kelly was kind of forced to make those hires, and he wasn't even in Baton Rouge making the hires. He was down in Naples for like half of it on vacation, just making calls here and there about it, not involved, not in the building as much as a guy like that needs to be. You can have your vacation. I mean, you can take your time. Most coaches take it in July. If you're an SEC head coach, Kirby Smart, you can find him at various places on the water in July doing his thing, fishing, whatever. You have to live a certain way, and you have to live it. And there's no other program in the country, in my opinion, that you live it more than you live it at LSU. I mean, it's the only flagship school in the state. There should be no competition in the state for recruits. And, it's a program that I think has started to get its footing, no doubt, as far as money and transfer portal and things like that. But it's going to be really interesting to see who gets the job next, number one, and how they approach it, because there is so much talent in that state that if you mine it the right way and you really eval it, and you can find some of the guys that maybe are from middle of nowhere Louisiana that end up being the CeeDee Lambs of Louisiana and get drafted and things like that, that you can really do some special things. It's not all about hitting on all of those 5 stars and talent that they're going to be able to recruit and have those top 10 classes. You've got to also find some of those 3 stars that are overlooked because they're in Louisiana and they take off. So, and Brian Kelly was just apparently just brutal to, just
everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
would you put it as the number one job opening right now?
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I would go there, Penn State, probably not Florida, just because of what they've got going on from a university standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Arkansas as the number 3 after that.
Ooh, that is a hot take. Hopefully the Arkansas fans are giving us some subscribes, and the Florida fans, dude, you want to see some of my home state and coming in here to the comments if they pick that up through AI or something.
I mean, I go to Arkansas for my summer vacations. Hot Springs is a great place. I know it's far from Fayetteville, but it's cool. They have a
No,
cool stadium, but like we've said previously on this pod, SMU is a better job right now than Arkansas is. I don't want to spark something that's not there.
Yeah. I mean, Florida, the alignment thing is pretty interesting there because Scott Strickland is in the position he's in as AD, but you also have no president, so Arkansas doesn't have the resources. But it's like I feel like if you kind of clean up in the top 10 of Arkansas each cycle, and you go pluck a couple kids from Dallas or a couple kids from East Texas, Texarkana, North Louisiana, and you can kind of build a class of like 20 to 22 kids that are that type of a group. I mean, you can do it. And then you then you kind of live in the portal a little bit, 5 to 10 guys a year. I mean, I see the vision at Arkansas, and it's a fun place to go see a game. It's not talked about enough, when it's full and calling the hogs and all of those things. So, yeah.
Let's stay in the ACC. Get out of SEC territory a little bit there.
Yep.
Number 9, Miami. They wear their camouflage uniforms, which I think were really, really bad. I think they were so ugly. But 7-7 at halftime against Stanford, which kudos to Stanford. I mean, obviously they're in a weird position with the interim head coach as well. But 42-7 ended up being the final of that one. You just dominated them in the second half, like you would expect Miami to, with the level of talent that they've got. They're at home, all of the things going their way, but I think they're a little bit looking at us as a potential trap game as well with the 11 a.m. kick. So it'll be interesting as we get to cover that a little bit later this week. 16 UVA, they were in a scare against North Carolina. Tar Heels show their first signs of life in ACC play. I mean, 17-16 was the final in that one. Chapel Bill almost gets their first win, but like we talked about earlier, you've got to be rooting for whoever UVA is playing against right now. I mean, they still have to play Duke, who I think is a very good team still. Virginia Tech, like we talked about earlier, they're rolling. That's a rivalry. It'll be a toss-up. But ultimately, you just have to be a fan of whoever UVA is playing at this point in the year.
No question. And that is just so brutal for, like you said, Chapel Bill. Goes for it, goes for the win. Just SMU really could have used that break yesterday because it kind of could have been like, all right, guys, that was funny. Good one. All right, everything's fine now. You know what I mean? But instead, not heartbreaking for SMU, of course, because they're trying to just control what they can control. But you're looking at the UVA schedule now, and now it is getting a little, I feel like, trickier by the day. When you look at Virginia Tech getting a win over Cal, they got to play Duke. I got to believe Duke's going to win. I mean, that's a game that Duke has to have. They can't go full Duke SMU last year and let that one slip away at home as well. And then they go all the way out to Cal. And if you look at UVA, they've now gone overtime, double overtime with Florida State, Louisville overtime win, 22-20 against Washington State, which they relied on a safety to get that one before it would have gone into overtime. And then UNC, going for it all and not getting it. That's their last 4 games. Now they go at Cal. They make the east to west trip. That is going to be brutal. And you just played on the road the week before. You played extra ball. A few snaps, but you played extra ball.
Is it a 10 o'clock kick for them at there?
It'd be 12:45.
Okay.
Is it 10? What do you mean? Is it like a new?
I didn't know if it was a Pac-12 after dark kind of.
Oh,
kick.
No. It's 2:45 Central, so 3:45. For them, but it's going to be 12:45 out there. So they get the luck of the draw on that. I will say, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but they go at Cal, then they play Wake Forest, then they play Duke, they get a bye, and then Virginia Tech. There is a world where they could go over down the stretch.
Hopefully Rhett calls Manny Diaz and Johnny Brewer, help him prep for that one.
Yeah. Help us out, please. Oh, man. All right. Moving on. Quick hitters. Couple last things.
Yeah, you basically had the Group of 5 bowl this past weekend,
Yeah.
South Florida and Memphis. Memphis takes the driver's seat for the Group of 5 bid, 34-31 win at the Liberty Bowl.
I missed that game completely. Besides, obviously, this
I did
rundown.
too. Besides just kind of looking at it before this, Kansas State wins their 17th straight Sunflower Showdown over the Jayhawks, 42-17, and then Ole Miss gets back on track against OU, 34-26. So, couple big stories this week in college football, but it rolls on. We will see our friends with ACC Network this coming week, so we'll get some coast to coast in Dallas for y'all this weekend.
Yes, exactly. And of course, the ACC Huddle coming to town, as well as Josh Pate. So two different friends of the program, so to speak, headed to Dallas. So please, guys, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. About half of you guys subscribe. The other half doesn't and then watches the show. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, the like button, all the things. Leave us a rating and review. Appreciate all of our sponsors for supporting us. We could not do this without you guys. And for Hayden Howerton, I'm Billy Embody. Catch you guys next time when we preview SMU hosting Miami. We'll put this one behind us and move on Thursday morning. So thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys then.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU on 3 and on Instagram at On3SMU. And keep it locked to OnThePonyExpress.com for more coverage.